Today we're going to explore, a topic that has perplexed and fascinated thinkers for centuries, the existential crisis. This phenomenon, often seen as a hallmark of the human condition, plunges us into the depths of profound questioning about life, purpose, and the very nature of existence itself. Questioning our existence, why we're here, and how to make sense of our lives. This, I would say, is the most fundamental aspect to being human. And on our journey through life, we often encounter moments that challenge our understanding of who we are and what our place is. These moments, these deep and often unsettling realizations, are what we refer to as an existential crisis. Now, an existential crisis arises when an individual confronts certain fundamental aspects of existence. It's not just about feeling lost or confused, it's about grappling with the very core questions of life itself. Questions like, what is my purpose? Can we ever truly know another person? Or even, how do we reconcile the freedom to choose with constraints of society? Now, historically, these questions have been really the domain of philosophers. The term existential traces its roots back to the existential movement, a school of philosophical thought that emerged in the 20th century. Thinkers like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and Sartre, although differing in their approaches, all focused on individual existence and the concerns inherent in it. So I'll briefly expand on these concepts to give you some context, and then we'll move into, in my view, the slightly more practical implementations of it. So there are really four main existential concerns that we all share. Death, and this represents, I think it can be closely related to time actually. It represents the ultimate limitation of human existence. The awareness of mortality, it can evoke this kind of anxiety, but it also imposes this sense of urgency and significance to our life choices and actions. The second would be freedom and responsibility. Existential freedom refers to the absence of external determinants, meaning we are free to choose and shape our own lives. This freedom, however, comes with the burden of responsibility, and recognizing that we are authors of our own actions, this can be both motivating and overwhelming. Third would be isolation. This concern addresses the fundamental aloneness of the individual. While we can share experiences with others, each person's existence is inherently separate. This realization can lead to a deep understanding of personal identity and independence, but also it can lead to feelings of loneliness and disconnection. The fourth is the search for meaning. Now, the search for meaning in a world that presents itself as indifferent to us is a central existential concern. It involves the struggle to find or create purpose and significance in life. The fear that life might be inherently meaningless can lead to existential despair. But on the other side, the pursuit of personal meaning can provide a sense of fulfillment and direction. So when overwhelmed with the, negative aspects to these four central concerns, this is what is often referred to as an existential crisis. And in the realm of psychology, an existential crisis is often portrayed to emerge during moments of significant life transitions, losses, or when facing the reality of our mortality. But in actual fact, they can appear at any time of our lives without any significant outward event. And although not a crisis, as soon as our minds are sufficiently developed, existential concerns are often continuously present, subtly affecting our present moment experiences. And importantly, these unanswered existential concerns are often worsening pre-existing emotional disturbances. To be human is to be aware of our freedom and responsibility to make choices, which we can either bear or repress. It's to be aware of our aloneness in our subjective experience, and it's the inevitable struggle to find meaning in a world that offers no clear-cut answers. So where an existential crisis can be seen as almost the extreme state of despair as it relates to existential concerns, which I guess would only be relevant in discrete circumstances, existential concerns in and of themselves are always relevant. A lack of why, no discrete responsibility, the feeling of being detached from the world we inhabit. If it isn't the sole reason for our individual suffering, it certainly nails the coffin. But just as it's capable of ensuring the lowest of lows, it's the one thing that makes humans also capable of reaching new heights. Whilst grappling with what exactly the point in all of this is, after emerging from this internal struggle, well, it's often the sole reason underlying the pursuit of greatness, the thing that distinguishes us from animals, a driving force which motivates us to do things that go beyond merely surviving. It's my understanding from both the literature and clinical experience that among the various existential concerns we face, such as freedom, isolation, and mortality, the quest for meaning stands out. It's not just another concern, it's a potential solution, a key that might unlock and alleviate the distress caused by other existential anxieties. When we find ourselves living a life that doesn't align with our personal meaning, whether it's doing a job that you're disinterested in, holding shallow relationships, having no concrete aspirations for the future, amongst many other things. A well-known existential thinker, neurologist and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, the author of the best-selling book Man's Search for Meaning, referred to this as the existential vacuum, a void, a space within us that, unless filled with an outward meaning, invites inward tensions that come as a consequence of a self-preoccupation, a kind of brooding on the current state of your life. Neurotic tendencies such as anxiety, depressions, obsessions, ruminations, and so on, they come flooding in. And this vacuum, these tensions, I often see it in the individual that hasn't even began to confront their own existential concerns. Hedonistic individuals living in the pursuit of pleasure are continually on this quest to arrive at a tensionless state, a state with no tension, no obstacles to overcome or missions to accomplish. But there is no such thing, because what often happens is those who are spared tension, they often create it, but this inward tension, the tension that's directed towards attempting to fill our individual needs, it often leads to the development of unhealthy emotional states. And that's the sole reason that we are existential beings. Complex minds that are continually aware of our own existence. And, not only this, but we're also aware of the effect that we have on the world around us. Of course, we all want to be happy, but we don't need to be happy. We need a reason to be happy, and that reason is found when grappling with the existential concerns inherent in our nature, and specifically confronting our own individual sense of meaning and purpose head-on. And we're not just animals that simply respond to stimuli in our environment, but we evaluate the meaning inherent in it. So, having spoken on the importance of meaning, specifically identifying and perceiving ourselves as having purpose, if we feel that we don't have it, how do we go about finding it? Well, firstly, by giving a nuanced answer that professes to address everyone would be contradicting existential thought, and also going against really a major contribution to the search for individual meaning, which is authenticity. There are, however, some practical considerations to focus on. And first, it's vital to understand a lack of meaning often arises not from a lack of meaning in life, but often from our disconnection with it. To bridge this gap, a critical step is self-reflection. Introspection, yes, but it goes beyond that. It's a deep, structured exploration of our values, beliefs, and passions. Methods like guided journaling, where you answer specific questions about moments you found fulfilling or activities that deeply engaged you, this can be instrumental. This process can really help distinguishing between external goals, often imposed by societal norms, and intrinsic goals that align with your deeper values. And having identified these, you then set the stage for implementing what can be referred to as value-driven goals. Set small, achievable objectives that resonate with your core values and gradually build towards more significant, value-aligned ambitions. We've often all become so lost in the demands of every day that it feels as if we've lost the ability to identify that which aligns with our sense of purpose. But I find that when doing something, whether it's something that you're giving out in the form of service, say within a job, or receiving in the form of experience, say in the relationship you hold, pay attention to the feeling it evokes in you. If an external demand, internally, if it doesn't align with your values, you may feel fear, anger, or indifference or boredom. It's what I describe as a general state of contraction. Now, when you're immersed in something that evokes that sense of fulfillment, I describe it as a sense of kind of dilation. You feel open, a state that is often attributed as being in a state of flow. It's a true state of mindfulness, this, where the inner chatter turns off, the ego state of feeling detached from the world dissolves, and you're completely focused on the present moment experience. Another thing I'd recommend is engaging in philosophical exploration. I've personally found it really, really helpful. Read and reflect upon existential literature or philosophy. Authors like Viktor Frankl, Albert Camus, or even contemporary thinkers. These can offer really, really good insights into how others have navigated the search for meaning. A partially practical perspective you might grasp from this is that grappling with the meaning of our lives as a whole is a thankless task. Just as you wouldn't subscribe meaning to a film before you've watched it in its entirety, life is much the same way. But unlike a film, we are the architect of our own lives. Our choices, our actions, and our attitudes determine the course of our existence. This responsibility can feel overwhelming, but it's also liberating. And lastly, if struggling, still, consider therapeutic dialogue. Sometimes discussions with a therapist, especially one trained in existential or even humanistic therapies, they can offer new angles and strategies to address the search for meaning that are specific to you and your individual circumstance, or that you feel may be contributing to any pre-existing anxieties, depressions, or so on. Anyway, guys, that's it from me for now. I hope you enjoyed, and of course, please feel free to subscribe if you want more of this kind of content. Anyway, thanks for listening.